The show is 8 episodes. They squished a 300 plus page book into the show. If you think that you don't need to read this, and you enjoyed the show, or you didn't enjoy the show, what are you doing? Hello and welcome to Why You Should Read. Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Rick Riordan himself. Now I know that everyone is talking about this because it's popular and because the series is coming out right now, but I want to tell you
that I read these when I was a kid.
No, actually I only read the second book, didn't know it was a series, read the first book, and then didn't like the first book because I thought it was boring. So if you needed a sign to be like, oh, I want to read this, but I'm a little older, and maybe you tried it when you were a kid, or you thought that the show was not that great, I would say pick up the books. Goodness gracious, I didn't know it was gonna be so chaotic. Okay, so let's talk about my opinions of why I think specifically that you should read this series. So regardless of age, I think this series is great for anyone who may want to pick it up. I think that if you have found yourself struggling, sad, depressed, upset, wanting to escape your reality, boy, do I have the series for you, because this is so fast-paced, so easy to read, so fun, so exciting, and at times you will feel tense. Like, I was feeling like this was real at some points. Like, Otonyo, my husband, was reading the news, and I was literally thinking that he was reading about, like, the end of Olympus, or, you know, like, the battles that Percy was going through, and I was like, wait, that's not real. Why am I thinking that he's reading that right now? Also, I'm gonna change my view right now. This series is a great series for you to pick up if you haven't read in a really long time and you've really been thinking, oh, I really want to read, and I miss the days in middle school and elementary school, and I used to be a big reader, or high school even. This will bring you back into that reading atmosphere, as long as you don't mind reading about young people. But I think it's so youthful in the best way that it's not cringy in any sort of way. You're not going to be like, oh, well, I feel too old to be reading this. It's going to be like, oh, I really enjoy this for what it is. You're either going to appreciate for yourself, appreciate it for your younger self, or you're going to appreciate it for the sense that you're going to be like, I want to read this to my kids when they are of age for me to read it to them. Rick Riordan has such a magnificent prose for portraying a 13-year-old to 16-year-old. I just think he captured that age so well and made it not annoying, or, you know, because even when I was a teenager, I didn't like other teenagers. I mean, I don't know, I just felt like immature and annoying and everything and just dramatic. But Percy is so personable that no matter what he goes through, you're there for it. Like, you want to see him succeed, and I think that that is so important for a protagonist. It's like, you want to see them fight the battles, you want them to win. I was just saying that for Harry Potter, for example, if you were following Dudley, you would not give a crap. You'd be like, okay, next, he can die, let the Dementors get him, you know. But with Percy Jackson, I love the banter between Percy and Annabeth and Grover being the funny one who was on his own kind of side quest almost, but also is so caring for his two friends, and he is funny. They're all funny, honestly. Annabeth is so sassy. Like, I feel like as a child, that would be the girl that I wanted to be. I mean, Athena. Child of Athena. Which is what she is. She's a child of Athena. I love her in the show, honestly. I think that the actress has portrayed her in a really good way, and I'm excited to see where they go. I'm hoping they bring in even more sass. And Percy, in the first 3 episodes, didn't really like him, but also the actor, I think that he is a new actor. I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think he's a new actor, and I felt like he was kind of awkward until the last 2 episodes where you could tell he was getting really comfortable. Like, the last episode, he was really comfortable with acting, that sass, that everything that he had to carry, because I bet he had a lot of weight on his shoulders, being like, oh, this is supposed to be the new, better adaptation of the Percy Jackson books, and I bet he really wanted it to succeed. I don't blame him for feeling like awkward and, you know, like kind of nervous to be doing something that is very important to like a lot of our childhoods. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's like life or death, but, you know, it's something that a lot of people have appreciated, and that show is going to be watched mainly by 20, 30-year-olds probably, but their kids are gonna watch it too, and then they're gonna grow up with with that. So he had a lot of weight on him, so I don't blame him. But towards the 8th episode, he had it down. So I'm excited for the 2nd season. I'm excited to see what happens, but I really think that you should pick up the book because it has so much more detail. You get to know so much more about the characters, you get to know their true story, and you get to follow them and feel so much more emotionally attached to them. Because I feel like if I was just watching the show, I really wouldn't be that emotionally attached to them. But the book really helps with that because you get all of their inner dialogue, their inner monologue, and you get to see how they're truly feeling about everything, why they do certain things that they do. You get to learn a lot more about their faults, their weaknesses that play a big part in the entire series. This series is very much character and plot driven, and I think that it is. I mean, what more can I say other than that? If you're feeling kind of antsy about reading it because you don't know anything about Greek mythology, don't worry, because one, I think he probably makes up some of his own stuff and puts his own spin on Greek mythology. So don't be worried and feel like, oh, well, I don't know anything, because honey, neither did I. I grew up in a Christian household, and for whatever reason, I was like, oh, I can't read about Greek mythology, except for I read the 2nd book. I just wasn't thinking about it being Greek mythology and got bored. And I stopped reading when I got into middle school, so I also missed out on this. And if you feel like you've missed out, don't worry. They're still here. You can still read them. It doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, 40, whatever. Just don't go into it expecting it to be Lord of the Rings, okay? Because that's not what you're going to get. I don't know, I feel like it is just so well written for anyone to read it and enjoy it. It's also very fantastical, and the escapism is so good. Like, I was not in a very good place when I read 3, 4, and 5, and it really brought me out of that rut of like, oh, well, when I sit down and read with my OCD and my mental health stuff, I just get depressed because I feel so alone. And as I was reading these books, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't feel alone. I feel happy. I feel like I'm remembering when I was that age, and I'm remembering, you know, how I felt at that age, and how I was sad then too, but like something like this, me reading something like this then would have also probably helped, honestly. But I just love how it was very much like anyone could be like Percy Jackson. He had ADHD, and throughout the time he deals with some very hard and traumatic things, so you do see how he is coping with those things. I feel like maybe Rick Riordan could have delved into that a bit more, but the breakneck pace did not allow for him to go back and be like, oh, well, you know, my friend has died, and you know, I've had to kill all these things and know that they're coming back just for me. But I appreciate that one of his teachers, who is in a wheelchair, is actually a centaur. And don't worry, none of this is spoilers, okay? This is just a part of it. It's not like a big deal. This happens, you find out in the first chapter or two. So I feel like it touches on disabilities a little bit, both mental and physical disabilities, and kind of twist it into a more fantastical, like special sort of way that is just so wholesome to me, that I think that it would be great for kids to read, and adults alike. Like I said, I'm going to keep reiterating that I think that adults should also read this, because it was just so good. It was so good. I think that Rick Riordan has a great way of describing battle scenes to where you're feeling tense, but yet there's still hope. Like, hope continues throughout the entire series. No matter what happens, you still have that hope for Percy and his friends. Like, oh, I think that they can make this. I think that they can make it through this. But still, you have that doubt, but it's like a good amount of doubt where you're like, ooh, actually, I'm terrified for their lives right now. I was definitely tearing up towards the end, because when he introduced different people, very strong female characters, some other groups, and then you see some other half-bloods that come in and play a really big part, especially in the 4th and the 5th book. He just ties everything in so well together. Everything feels so purposeful. There's nothing that you're going to be reading that's not going to matter in this series. I am not going to compare this to Harry Potter, because one, I haven't read all of Harry Potter yet. I've only read the first book, and right now I'm doing a reading challenge where I have to read 6 books so I can buy the other 6 books, because my husband was like, what about the rest of your physical to be read? Like, you have so many books on yourself, please read them before you buy more. And I was like, okay, I guess. And I'm only 3.5 books in, so I have some more reading to do. If you want to get back into reading, this is the perfect series that is not intimidating at all. You don't really have to know anything going into it. You just open the book and have a good time. This series is so perfect. Just open a book, have a good time, you know, read it in between breaks at work, read it when you come home and you're stressed and you don't want your brain to work too hard, you know, and then you don't want to scroll on TikTok anymore. Just pick it up, please. Like, I'm begging you. Let me know if you have read this series before, if you want to read this series, if you've watched the show. If you've watched the show and you think that you shouldn't read the books because you're like, oh, I already spoiled it for myself because I watched the show. The show is 8 episodes. They squished a 300+ page book into the show. The first 3 episodes are like the first 3 chapters, and then after that, everything is just like squished. Okay, so if you think that you don't need to read this, and you enjoyed the show, or you didn't enjoy the show, what are you doing? Because this is so much more in detail, it goes in so much more depth. These books are not extremely expensive, they're $9 each. I'm sure that you can find these covers in the old covers in used bookstores, or Amazon, or Kindle Unlimited, or ebooks, or anything. Ebooks are probably going to be a lot less expensive. Just pick up this series. Let's talk about my ratings, and I will talk about why I rated them the way that I did. First book was a 5 out of 5 stars. I thought this book was amazing, and it was just a great start to the series. You immediately care about Percy. You love Percy. Okay, let's talk about the show. In the first 3 episodes, if you found yourself not enjoying it, don't worry about it, because I think that it was not an accurate representation of who Percy is. I felt like he was very whiny and childish, and my husband was like, oh, well, you know, he just went through a lot. And I'm like, yeah, but he did in the book too, but he was still so charismatic and so funny that you just loved reading about him, and you immediately cared. You're immediately on his side, rooting for him. So it's great. If you haven't enjoyed the show that much, I would say still pick it up. You're immersed the whole time. It's very exciting. The second book, The Sea of Monsters, the only one I read as a kid, and I thought it was the best book in the whole entire world. The original cover was so cool that I wanted to pick it up. Well, it's a 4.75. I didn't enjoy it as much, but I did enjoy that they introduced Tyson, who is a Cyclops, and he has a very important part in this story and in the later parts of the series. And yeah, I thought it was really good. All my books being out of order. Okay, so the Titan's Curse, I thought that this book was really good. I really liked that it introduced a lot more characters than just the Half-Bloods and humans, and that it brought a lot more into the story that was very important to the story and just made it so much more complex. And so the third book was a 4.75 as well for me, because I think it was just, I read it really slowly for some reason. Like, it wasn't slow, but it took me like a week or so to read, maybe 2 weeks, which is not exactly normal for this sort of books. Like, the words are so big on there. I shouldn't have taken so long to read it, but I did. And the fourth book, it might be my favorite one. I don't know. The adventure was so good. And if you got kind of bored of the same Percy goes on a quest that he either was supposed to go on or wasn't supposed to go on and everything, this really picks it up and brings in such an intense quest for him that is so much different than any of the others, and you're just wondering the entire time what is going to happen, what's the next new thing that's going to come in the next chapter. You know, is everyone going to be okay? Are they not? Are people going to die? Like, what is going to happen in this book? I'm so stressed. And you'll want to read the 5th and final book pretty much immediately after that one, because you really want to know what's going to happen in the great big prophecy, which is exactly what this book is about. It's about when Percy turns 16, and you're like, okay, is the great prophecy about Percy? What all does the prophecy entail? And you get to hear the entire prophecy now, because you, along with Percy, do not know the great prophecy, but you know that he may or may not be a part of it, and that you're basically stressing along with Percy in this book. And I don't know, like, the way that Rick Riordan wrote Percy and Annabeth and Grover and Tyson and even Clarice, and he tells you about Greek mythology along the way. I don't know how accurate it is, but this just finishes so well. I didn't cry or anything. I mean, maybe I should have or something, I don't know, but I wasn't super emotional, but I definitely was feeling for these characters. And this was also a 5-star, so it's a 5-star series. All in all, let me know what you thought of this video. If you would like to see some comparisons between Percy Jackson and Harry Potter, because Percy Jackson did come out after Harry Potter, and you can definitely see the similarities between them. Yeah, I think I'm done rambling about it, but if you want to know more, if you want me to go in depth, if you want me to start doing some spoiler talks about them and like the books versus the shows, I would love to do that. Just let me know, and I will do that. So yeah, but my camera's dying, so I gotta go. Thanks so much for coming, and yeah, I hope you have a blessed day. Bye. Why did I do that? Okay.